Part 12, Appendix, of Reminiscences of Forts Sumter and Moultrie in 1860-61. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by FNH. Reminiscences of Forts Sumter and Moultrie in 1860-61 by Abner Doubleday. Appendix. List of officers and enlisted men present at the bombardment of Fort Sumter, April 12th and 13th, 1861. Commissioned officers: Major Robert Anderson, 1st United States Artillery. Captain Abner Doubleday, 1st United States Artillery. Captain Truman Seymour, 1st United States Artillery. First Lieutenant Jefferson C. Davis, 1st United States Artillery. Second Lieutenant Norman J. Hall, 1st United States Artillery. Captain J. G. Foster, United States Engineers. Lieutenant G. W. Snyder, United States Engineers. Lieutenant R. K. Meade, United States Engineers. Assistant Surgeon S. W. Crawford, United States Army. Enlisted men: Ordnance Sergeant James Kearney, United States Army. Quartermaster Sergeant William H. Hammer, 1st United States Artillery. Regimental Band, 1st Artillery. Sergeant James E. Galway. Corporal Andrew Smith. Private Andrew Murphy. Private Federici Onorati. Private Peter Rice. Private Henry Schmidt. Private John Urquhart. Private Andrew Wickstrom. Company E, 1st Artillery. First Sergeant Eugene Schreiber. Sergeant Thomas Kiernan. Sergeant William A. Hahn. Sergeant James Chester. Corporal Owen Maguire. Corporal Francis J. Oakes. Corporal Charles Bringhurst. Corporal Henry Ellerbrook. Musician Charles Hall. Private Philip Anderman. Private John Emil Noack. Private Cornelius Baker. Private Thomas Carroll. Private Patrick Clancy. Private John Davis. Private James Digham. Private George Fielding. Private Edward Galway. Private James Gibbons. Private James Hayes. Private Daniel Hugh. Private John Irwin. Private James MacDonald. Private Samuel Miller. Private John Newport. Private George Pinchard. Private Frank Rivers. Private Louis Schroeder. Private Carl A. Selman. Private John Thompson. Private Charles H. Tozer. Private William Witzman. Company H, 1st Artillery. First Sergeant John Renahan. Sergeant James Mahanan. Sergeant John Commody. Sergeant John Otto. Corporal Christopher Costellan. Musician Robert Foster. Artificer Henry Strand. Private Edward Brady. Private Barney Kane. Private John Duran. Private Dennis Johnson. Private John Coey. Private John Klein. Private John Lanigan. Private Frederick Littner. Private John McGill. Private John LaRoche. Private Frederick Meyer. Private James Moore. Private William Morter. Private Patrick Nealon. Private John Nixon. Private Michael O'Donnell. Private Robert Rowe. Private William Walker. Private Joseph Wall. Private Edmund Walsh. Private Henry R. Walter. Private Herman Will. Private Thomas Wisnowski. Private Caspar Waterpel. List of mechanics and employees present in Fort Sumter during the bombardment, April 12th and 13th, 1861. Employees of the Engineer Department: George Coons, mason. John Schwerer, mason. John Buckley, smith. John Lindsay, carpenter. John Saxton, rigger. James Tweedle, smith. Wimmo Lyman, overseer. Labourers: Michael Byrne, John Burns, John Branley. Peter Kane, Patrick Connor, Michael Cummins, William Dorsey. Edward Davis, Patrick Donahoe. Peter Donnelly, William Agon, Andrew Felton, Michael Goff, James Howlett, Patrick Heaney, Andrew Lindsay, Dennis McGrath, John McCarty, James Mahannon, Michael Meachins, Thomas Murphy, Thomas Myers, William Powers, Edward Quinn, Patrick Quinn, Martin Rafferty, John Riley, Michael Ryan, Jeremiah Ryan, James Ryan, James Shear. Cooks: Samuel Braze, Patrick Walsh. The following is taken from a South Carolina official document, but it seems somewhat defective in detail. List of Confederate batteries constructed with a view to the reduction of Fort Sumter. On Morris Island, Brigadier General James W. Simons, commanding. Colonel Wilmot G. D. Saussure, commanding Artillery Battalion. Lieutenant J. R. Macbeth, Captain J. Jones, and Lieutenant F. L. Childs, acting as aides to Colonel D. Saussure. Stevens Battery, fired 1,200 shots. 3 8-inch Columbiads, garrisoned by the Palmetto Guard. Captain George B. Cuthbert, commanding. Lieutenant G. L. Buist. The ammunition was served out by Mr. Phillips and Mr. Campbell. One gun was disabled on Friday. The Cummings Point Battery. 2 42-pounders, 3 10-inch mortars, 1 Blakely gun. Garrisoned by a detachment of the Palmetto Guard and by cadets from the Citadel Academy in Charleston. Captain J. P. Thomas of the Citadel Academy, commanding Blakely gun. Lieutenant C. R. Holmes of the Citadel Academy, commanding mortars. Lieutenant W. W. Armstrong of the Citadel Academy at the mortars. Second Lieutenant Thomas Sumter of the Palmetto Guard, in charge of the 42-pounders. Channel Battery. Did not fire. Captain Calhoun, commanding. First Lieutenant A. M. Wagner. Lieutenant Sitgraves. Second Lieutenant M. C. Preston. On James Island, Major N. G. Evans, AAG, commanding. Battery of 24-pounders. Captain George S. James, commanding. Mortar Battery. First Lieutenant W. H. Gibbs, of the Artillery. Lieutenant H. S. Farley. Lieutenant J. E. Macpherson, Washington. Lieutenant T. B. Hayne, Dr. Libby. Upper Battery. Fired 2,425 shots. 2 10-inch mortars. Lower Battery, 2 10-inch mortars. Captain S. C. Thayer of the S.C. Navy, commanding. On Sullivan's Island, Brigadier General John Dunavant, commanding. Lieutenant Colonel Roswells Ripley, commanding the artillery. Captain J. B. Burns of General Dunavant's staff. Surgeons P. J. Robinson, R. F. Mitchell, and Arthur Lynch. Assistant Surgeons D. W. Taylor, Dr. F. F. Miles, Dr. F. L. Parker. The ironclad floating battery at the Cove fired 1,900 shots. 2 42-pounders, 2 32-pounders, garrisoned by Company D of the Artillery. Captain James Hamilton. First Lieutenant J. A. Yates. Second Lieutenant F. H. Halston. The Dahlgren Battery, near the floating battery. 1 9-inch Dahlgren gun. Garrisoned by Company D of the Artillery. Captain S. R. Hamilton. Mr. John Wells. The Enfilade Battery fired 1,825 shots. Garrisoned by Company K of the Artillery. Captain James H. Halgenquist. Company B of the Artillery, commanding. First Lieutenant J. Valentine B. S. Burnett. Mortar Battery No. 1, between Fort Moultrie and the Cove. Captain James H. Hallenquist. Company B of the Artillery, commanding. Lieutenant O. Blanding. Lieutenant Fleming. Fort Moultrie fired 1,825 shots. 3 8-inch Columbiads, 2 32-pounders, 4 24-pounders. Garrisoned by the Artillery Battalion under Lieutenant Colonel Ripley. Captain W. R. Calhoun, Company A of the Artillery, Executive Officer. Sumter Battery, facing south-southwest. Lieutenant Alfred Rhett, Company B Artillery, commanding. Second Lieutenant John Mitchell. Mr. F. D. Blake, Volunteer Engineer. Oblique Battery, on the west. 2 24-pounders. Lieutenant C. W. Parker, Company D of the Artillery. Mortar Battery No. 2, east of Fort Moultrie. 2 10-inch mortars. Captain William Butler of the Infantry. Lieutenant J. A. Hugernin, E. Maury, Mr. Blocker, Mr. Billings, and Mr. Rice assisted. This battery was joined to the Maffitt Channel battery. A trap air battery fired 1,300 shots, 3 10-inch mortars. Garrisoned by Marion Artillery, J. Gadsden King commanding. Lieutenant W. D. H. Kirkwood, J. P. Strauchecker, A. M. Huger, E. L. Parker. The Marion Artillery was afterward relieved by the Sumter Guard under Captain John Russell. At Mount Pleasant Battery. Fired 2,925 shots, 2 10-inch mortars. Captain Robert Martin of the Infantry commanding. Lieutenant G. N. Reynolds, Company B of the Artillery. Lieutenant D. S. Calhoun of the Infantry. End of Appendix. End of Reminiscences of Fort Sumter and Moultrie in 1860-61 by Abner Doubleday. Recording by FNH. Visit www.bookranger.co.uk.